empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? We're 6 seconds, 8 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Wednesday. We are in the middle of the work week. We are working towards getting to State College and playing the Penn State Nittany Lions in what will be by far our biggest challenge of the season and probably our second toughest game until we see Big Blue at the end of November. We have a lot of updates. Ryan Day had a press conference today. Kevin Wilson, Jim Knowles also spoke. They updated some things, some personnel stuff, some injury stuff. So we're going to fill you in on all of that. But first, as always, thank you. We are thankful and grateful for you guys. We never take it for granted. You guys have a lot of options. You guys have been tuning in big numbers, so we appreciate you guys. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like down below. Comment which player needs to step up when we go to Penn State and have a huge game to make it out of there with a victory. Also, shout out where you're from. I love when you guys do that. Thank you guys. Without further ado, we're getting right into it. It's a big week. Got my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you today?
Doing great. Had a chance to listen to the Ryan Day press conference, the Kirk Barton press conference. So it's like a press conference palooza today, and lots of great stuff coming out of that, and getting ready for a huge game on Saturday. Can't wait for the ball to be kicked off, and lots to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna play that Kirk Ferentz clip again. We don't, we're not an Iowa podcast, obviously, but he had something very interesting to say about the media because he was getting basically tortured on Saturday by some of the media members that were asking some really hard questions after a very bad loss. And again, sometimes I think that there's a little bit of frustration, and he let the media have it today. It was pretty good, so we're gonna play that for you. Ryan Day had his press conference today again. In the pantheon of boring press conferences, he's a lot closer. He's probably worse than Jim Tressel in terms of the amount of things he actually says. Truss was really bad about it, and I love Truss, but he just is not. He did not have time to say anything of note to the media. Urban was kind of the opposite. He was kind of must-see TV. He was very opinionated, very vocal, demonstrative, and I used to love his press conferences because you could actually learn some stuff. Ryan, and again, I don't fault any coach for being more to the vest because it doesn't help to say things to give the enemy any sort of advantage. Basically around the availability of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Nevada, I know you listened to it. I listened to it. He doesn't say much, but was there anything compelling that you learned today from the Ryan Day press conference?
Well, I think we got to take a step back and think about what the Jackson Smith and Jigba situation. I've been kind of critical of Ohio State for running him back out there for the second time, having him get injured again, and then coming off. And after the game, Ryan Day went out of his way to say no, he wasn't injured. He was just on a pitch count. And then Ohio State kind of circled the wagons and threw out some of their operatives to come out and make the report. Oh no, it wasn't a hamstring. It was a knee. It was nothing to do. It was a total coincidence. Just nothing to do with that. And that today, the report is, oh no, he's fine and he'll be in a pitch count and he'll play. The one thing at our site, we said that we specialize in inside information, but we're not going into injuries. We think that that's kind of over the line. So I'm not going to get into specifics of Jackson Smith and Jigba, availability, not availability, or injury or non-injury. But what I will say is the things that Ryan Day is saying are just, they're not consistent. Either he was hurt or he wasn't. Either it was a knee or it was a hamstring. Either he's available or he's not available. So I think it's just kind of interesting to see how the Jackson Smith and Jigba story has kind of evolved over the past few days with Ohio State. They're clearly trying to play a little bit of cat and mouse with everybody. Frankly, his availability or non-availability isn't going to make a difference in terms of the Penn State game. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. Either way, I think Ohio State prevails easily, but it's been kind of funny to me to watch the spin on the story of JSN. And I understand the reasons. One, you don't want to talk about injuries because you don't want to give Penn State anything. Secondly, you don't want to talk about injuries because you don't want to hurt Jackson's draft stock. You don't want him to be known as kind of like a player that's always injured. Three, you don't want to hang out the OSU medical and strength and conditioning staff. So I understand there are lots of reasons for them to play these games, but it's just kind of funny when they throw this stuff out there and we have to listen to it, and then we just have to nod our head and say, yeah, that they're telling the truth on this because clearly clearly it's a story, and I felt like it was story time today during the press conference.
Yeah, and coaches go through great lengths to not reveal things to the media, and try to limit who sees what. For instance, I tore my MCL actually out at State College in 2005. It was on field goal. Our long snapper literally got picked up, and it'd be a penalty today for what they did. You can't hit the long snapper anymore, but they did back then. They threw him right into my knee. It was planted. Thank God I had a knee brace on, or I probably wouldn't even out of been like McGahee and torn everything. But I still tore my MCL with a full Don joint knee brace on. So the next few weeks, I knew I was going to be out for 3 weeks, and we got ready. We had to play Michigan State. That was the next week at home, and the media kind of got the same treatment. Honestly, I think Tressel actually gave him more access because I don't think the media gets to go out to practice at all anymore. But under Tressel, they used to get to come out for like the first 15 minutes of practice, which included like pre-practice stretch or like the pre-practice walkthrough and like the first period of punt. So they got to watch like some of the walkthrough stuff and then some of the beginning of practice stuff. And we used to have these jerseys. And if you were injured, if you were non-contact, can't do anything, you're put in a yellow jersey. If you're in like light contact and you can do some stuff, you're in a blue jersey. They put you in it's like a little dinghy, you just like throw it over top of your regular jersey. When I was hurt and I knew there was no chance I was playing, Jim Tressel told the media I was questionable. And when the media was out at the field, he told the trainers, do not give Barton a yellow jersey. When they leave, you can give him a yellow jersey because he's not doing anything he's not practicing. He's not doing, I was literally like, my knee was in bad shape. As soon as those guys left, I went into the weight room and did the Stairmaster to keep my conditioning up because I couldn't do any sort of football activity because I didn't have knee stability. But those are the kind of games they play. And I lived it. So I would go out to walk through. I would stand as the first team right tackle. We'd do the walkthrough while the media was out there. As soon as the media left, I was gone. I was back in the weight room getting worked out by the strength coaches, getting conditioning stuff done that I could do that didn't affect my knee. But that's the kind of war games you play because, we were starting Alex Boone, a true freshman at right tackle. And you do not want Michigan State to know that we are starting a true freshman at right tackle because that's the guy they're going to go after. If it's me and I'm a third-year sophomore, started 15 games, you're not going to attack me. But you got an 18-year-old who's never started a game before, John L. Smith could have come after him. And that's just kind of how they hide the injuries. Were there any other things? And I was at the game. I absolutely think Jackson Smith-Njigba re-injured something. I watched him. I saw him at the end of the route. I saw him pull up. I watched him as he walked to the sideline. And I was like, mother effer, he got hurt again. And I saw him gimping around back by the bench. I saw him, talk to some guys over there on the bench. I saw, when they had their next huddle, the next time the offense got a possession, he did not have his helmet. He walked over towards the huddle. He was like the last guy out of the 50 offensive guys and coaches that were in that huddle to get there. He went and got his helmet, but clearly, there was no urgency to play or urgency to do anything. So, and I could just look, his body language looked like he was pissed off. He was distraught that he re-injured something, he re-aggravated something. And honestly, I hope I'm wrong. There's nobody in this universe that hopes he's wrong more than I am, because I would love for Jackson Smith-Njigba to go from 20 plays last week to 35 or 40 plays on the pitch count this week. And we need him for Penn State. But Nevada, you've been around the block. You've seen injuries. You've seen some of the covert op stuffs. What's your opinion on what we will get out of Jackson Smith-Njigba this week out at State College?
Well, it's so hard to say. And like I said, injuries, I hate talking about the injury stuff. It's the one thing I hate more than anything talking about. I'm going to take Day at his word and assume that JSN's on a pitch count this week. He comes out and does some good things. But again, I don't think we need him. He's been inconsequential to our passing game so far this year. I think you've got other guys that are, I'm not saying that long term we're not better off without him being out there. You're talking about a guy who went for 15 receptions, 347 yards in the Rose Bowl last year. So you'd be silly to say that we're not better with him on the field. But in a short term, small sample size thing like the Penn State game, am I fine with Emeka and Marvin and Julian going out there and doing their thing? Yeah, I'm absolutely do that. Anything we get out of JSN, will just be a happy additional benefit, and we'll all see on Saturday at noon. And if Dave says he's playing, then I'm going with he's playing, and hopefully he does well.
Yeah, I would love for him to play, but my God, if there's one position where you can lose maybe the number one player in the country at the position and still not miss a beat, it's the wide receiver room, because Julian Fleming has been fantastic. Stepping up is the third guy, and you still have guys after that. You haven't seen much from Jaden Ballard. Some guys that they're kind of nipping at the heels. I don't know if they're at the level of Marvin and Emeka and Julian, but those guys they're ready to eat. It's their time to shine, and it's great seeing Julian Fleming, after the hell that he has been through, really being productive. Ryan also talked about the offensive line, some of the inconsistencies, some of the looks, some of the performance stuff. He does a really good job of expressing disappointment, but not like over the top, not throwing people under the bus. But it was a level jump in competition. Like, we're not playing Antarctica State anymore and some of these other schools. Like, we're up to Iowa. Penn State will be a challenge. It's very loud there. They have a good front. I think that they got exposed by Michigan, but Michigan might have the best line in the country. So, I don't, are we there yet? I think we're probably in the top 5 to 10 on the O-line, but this is going to be the loudest place these guys have played at. Donnie Jackson's never played anywhere this loud. I think he's a fantastic player, but it's a challenge. I mean, none of those guys have played in Penn State with people. Some of those guys were there in 2020 when we had the COVID year and they had cardboard cutouts and fake noise, but this place is a different beast. So it'll be interesting. Nevada, how are you feeling about the offensive line a couple days after Iowa's front handed it to us up front in the rushing game? Do you think our guys are going to bounce back? I feel good about it. But what's your take on it?
Well, I went back and watched every single rushing play for Ohio State against Iowa, and I'm just telling you, it wasn't big mistakes on the offensive line. It's scheme, predictability, and being outnumbered, and it just came through loud and clear every single time. You'd be asking a guy like Matt Jones to make a reach block on a guy where he has to run 7 yards up the field and catch a linebacker who's got an angle on him into the hole, who's running he's keying off the running back and running full speed out there to catch a guy like Trey Henderson out there on the edge. I mean, that's stuff that's just impossible. That's just bad play design. And I think from Ryan Day's perspective, they've got to take a look in the mirror. They will, when they look at these things, they see that we've got issues on our play design, and we've got issues, but it wasn't on the offensive line. I'm just telling you, our play design right now is not. It's not up to the par that it needs to be. It wasn't good against Iowa. I think it'll be better against Penn State, because I think that Ryan Day is an absolute offensive genius. But we weren't good. The play calling wasn't good, and we were playing against the Iowa defense that was selling out to stop the run, and we did very little to present them with challenges on that. Now, having said that, we scored 54 points, and if you listen to the Iowa press conference afterwards, they're not exactly happy. That was an embarrassing loss for them. And it's kind of funny, the tale of two, fan bases. You've got the Ohio State fan base that after that game is thinking, oh man, that was just terrible. We weren't that guy. We only beat them by 44 points. And the Iowa people are ready to run Ferentz out of town because they feel like he's incompetent. That's the worst loss in their history, and this is terrible. And they want to burn the place down. So it's kind of funny how we can be so critical of a 44-point win while they're lining up on the ledges ready to riot and burn down the stadium. So it's definitely been a tale of two cities for sure.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why the fan base gets so emotional is because the stakes are really high this year. This is the year we have to win the national title. We have C.J. Stroud. Next year, we will take a step back with Kyle McCord or whoever is the new first-year guy. I don't think it's going to be like how it was with CJ last year where he walked right in. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that everyone can point to me and say, Kirk, the offense is even better without CJ and without Paris and without DeWand. And we're going to be working in 2 new tackles, a new quarterback. I mean, it's not going to be as good. And I'm just being honest. And so, and I think that Georgia and Bama are down. I think this is the year that you got to catch them. And we've got, we had Justin Fields come through here, didn't win a title. We had Dwayne Haskins. We've had these first-round quarterbacks, and you gotta make hay while the sun's shining, because right now these guys you don't get these generational quarterbacks. We seem to get them every year, and then we got Dylan Raiola coming, but we got to win a national title this year. And I think that the reason our folks have anxiety is because, they look at last year, they look at how Michigan whooped us, Michigan got all these accolades, and then they showed up to play Georgia, and Georgia beat them like they're a little kid. So, I think everyone is obsessed with, would that have been good enough to beat Georgia to win a national title, or Bama, or Tennessee, or a team that has closer to equal talent? Because Iowa, they've got some great players, but they're not anywhere near as talented as we are. The skill guys aren't even close. Obviously, the quarterback is probably the biggest differential that we'll see all year in CJ Stroud versus Spencer Petras. I mean, that was just an awful, awful thing to watch. But going forward, Nevada, we got these last two big games. We got a bunch of kind of filler in the middle. What do you see happening this Saturday? Obviously, you have plenty of time to change your mind, but how are you feeling on Wednesday? This is airing on Wednesday, about our chances and the way the team is projecting right now.
Well, I think, so far so good. I think Ohio State, the good news is we don't have like some sort of mass injury casualty event where, we've got a bunch of guys out. We're having to move guys around on the defensive front. Other than the JSN situation, which we've talked about ad nauseum, we're pretty good shape. And I think we've got a lot of continuity. I think the coaches, are ready, for what's in front of them. They're, as you mentioned, my biggest concern is guys that haven't played up in that environment before. Donovan Jackson is one of those guys specifically that I'm very concerned about, because he's never seen or heard anything quite like that. He's been having some challenges there on the interior line, and I think Penn State's going to come after him, and that's going to create some challenges for the OSU offense. Hopefully, if the Ohio State defense can deal with the veteran quarterback there in Penn State and all the things that he's going to be doing. I'm still feeling it's going to be a close game, a tight game, and Ohio State will ultimately prevail. But it's going to be a heck of a ball game. I can't wait.
Yeah, I completely agree. We've got a clip from Kirk Ferentz. We've never done this before, but this was pretty hilarious. He got it pretty good from the media after the Ohio State game in the visitor locker room media session. So we're gonna play this clip real quick, and Nevada, I'm gonna have you react to this.
In some cases, interrogation on Saturday that I experienced. And the one good thing about that, it dawned on me coming home, I said, man, as bad as today was, it could have been worse, because I could have been that guy. I could have been that guy, like had his job and had to act like he did. So, yeah, it could be a hell of a lot worse, right? Things aren't all bad. But one thing I did on Sunday was just compliment our players, the way they've handled it. It's not fun to stand up in front of, tough questions when you went through a loss.
Nevada, your reaction to that, and I've literally been in his shoes multiple times in my career as a former player. What is your reaction to what Kirk Ferentz had to say there?
Well, I think just you have to understand the relationship between the media and coaches. Coaches hate media. They hate it. They hate everything about it. They hate the fact that the media gets to ask them questions, gets to interrogate them, gets to talk about things, gets to report things. And the only thing that they like about the media is when they can control the media, when they can have their kind of state media that'll go out and put out the words that they want to say. And I think Ferentz, that was probably one of the first times that you've ever had a coach really say what he really thinks about the media. Can't stand the game. What he really wanted to say is he kind of went there. He's like, wouldn't want to be that guy. What he really wants to say is, hey, I make $10 million a year, and this guy can't live in as big a house as I do, and doesn't have nice as car as I do. That's what he really wanted. I mean, he went right to the edge. He didn't quite go there, but he kind of went right there. But, I mean, the coaches, they hate the media. And I think for Ferentz right there, that he thought about that line for 3 or 4 days afterwards. He finally had a chance to deliver today. And he couldn't wait to deliver it, And so that wasn't contrived. That was somebody wrote that down for him, and he had it on a note card and was ready to say it. And he delivered it. Did a good job delivering the line, and I'm sure he felt sick burn on the media after that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've been in the staff room with these guys. And I've been there after losses. I've been there when these guys are getting crucified. The coaches are coordinators getting crucified. And, a lot of these guys, they get beat down hard by the media. It's hard on their families. I think that, the media, they know the power they have because they can basically control the narrative about, who's liked, who's disliked, who's, fire. I mean, I heard for 12 years, fire Jim Bowman every single year. And some years, we weren't really that good. But, it's just, that's just how it is. And when you're struggling, you lose. I mean, there's going to be heads rolling. There's going to be calls for heads to roll. And sometimes heads do roll. Hell, we won the Rose Bowl. And, we lost 2 games last year. And we fired, the whole defensive staff minus LJ. And we fired Stud. And, it is what it is. But I know, these coaches, when they're getting beat down by the media, they're like, well, my direct deposit this month is going to be $750,000. These head coaches, $1 million, whatever the number is. And it's like, so it ain't that bad. So I thought that was funny because I personally have always respected Kirk Ferentz because I always thought he did a good job of developing guys. I always thought he was classy. I know that and I was out there in 04 when they whooped our ass, and they whooped us in 17 bad. They ran it up on us, so this time we ran it up on them. But I never had issues with him like I did with Bielema and some of these other coaches that are cowards and guys that are classless. I always thought Iowa was a classy program. I never had issues with them. Their players weren't talkative. Again, I respect them. They're down bad. I don't know if they'll ever be able to recover and get it going, but I did think that was kind of a moment of clarity where people get to see how coaches really feel about the media. It's like, hey, you guys could talk all the trash you want in your newspapers and your boards and whatever, but I get to ride away and in my private jet and my mansion and my summer house in Florida or whatever. So it's always pretty funny. Wrap this thing up, Nevada. Anything coming down the pike? It's Chip Trevanium. I want to ask you, who's a guy that you think could step up in the second half? I love that Chip's back at running back. I feel like we've been wasting him at linebacker because he clearly didn't have a role. We're thin at running back. I hope we start doing some of the 2 running back stuff. Any projections for Penn State as of Wednesday?
No, again, the guy that I'm looking for in the second, I'm looking for Jordan Hancock to make an impact. I mean, he's a guy coming off an injury, and he was so impressive in the fall. I just think he's ready for immediate impact. I think that's a position that you can come in and make an immediate impact. And I think he's going to be an impact player for us in the second half of the season and down the stretch. And he's my pick for the breakout second half guy that we haven't talked about a lot. But I think by the end of the year everybody will know his name because he's a big timer. Was a big time recruit and could be a big time player for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that if there's ever a position of need right now, corner is probably the weak link on the defense. The front seven is playing outstanding football. The safeties are playing great. We get a true lockdown corner. I think it'll bode well for the future. Obviously, you can't have enough of those guys. But yeah, I'm excited Chip's back at running back. I think that he made the transfer here. He has eye on a linebacker. It didn't really work out. He was playing special teams, and they were playing him as a kick returner, trying to figure out a role for him. And I don't think he's a real natural kick returner. Honestly, he wasn't. He's an explosive guy, but he's running back. He's not Trey Henderson. He's not a guy Saquon. So I'll be excited to see if they give him some touches and they get him in the mix a little bit. Because I think that you can more liberally use the 2 running back look now that you have a 4th true running back in that room. You're not going down to a walk on, which that was kind of the reason why he moved over, is because one of the walk-ons got hurt. But I look forward to seeing it. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a like. I would like to know who is going to be your guy that makes a big jump in the second half, a guy that hadn't had much of the first half because of injuries. At Jackson Smith and Jigba, at Chip. There's a lot of guys that I don't think have had the seasons that they've wanted to this point, and there's a lot of season left. So put those names down in the comments. Shout out where you're from. I love that, as always. If you enjoyed this and you want to know what's really going on inside Ohio State football, BuckeyeScoop.com is the place to be. You have to check it out. We're grinding. We have got some crazy content coming. We got Bill Greene, got Nevada. We've got a bunch of new contributors that are really bringing the goods. TJ Downing, super excited about these guys. So appreciate you guys, as always. I'm going to get on the message boards as soon as this is over. Check in with you guys. But as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks. Beat the Nittany Lions.